All right, this is Math 103, 12.2, Frequency Distributions and Statistical Graphs. So we're going to start by doing a few definitions on what a frequency distribution and a statistical piece of data is, and then we're going to look at this little problem. I always give this to my students in class, and it's kind of fun to look at. But a frequency distribution has two parts. One is talking about a piece of data, and that's going to be important. That is a single response to an experiment, okay? And then we have frequency distributions. Well, those are going to be listings of observed values and corresponding frequencies or occurrences of each of those data points. So it's a listing of observed values and the corresponding number of times those values occur. Okay, and that's what we call the frequency. So in this example, I usually give this in class. I ask students to see if they can count the number of F's in this little blurb, okay? And you can see because of careless observations that we can make statistical errors. So a lot of times I hear people say 3 and they say 4, 5, but the correct answer is actually there are 6 F's. We have finished files are the result of years of scientific study combined with the experience of years. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, got them all. And the ones that are most often missed are the words, are the ofs, okay? Our brain just kind of skims over those words and we don't look at that data. We just kind of overlook or miss that F. So we're going to talk about how to make a frequency table. And so what you have is I said the observed values, and in this case, that's going to be the number of children. And then we have our frequency, the number of families that have those children. Now, this is nice because they actually put your data in order. Not all the time does that happen. And I know it's difficult to do these assignments on the computer because you aren't able to cross things off. And it is very easy to miss versus, if you had the paper in front. So just be very careful. But we are going to list our observed values. We have families that have 0 children, 1 child, all the way up to 9. So we are going to list those here. And then we're going to count. And like I said, they do a nice job of making this, whoops, that's a wrong shape there. They do a very nice job of making these numbers in a nice order. So let's do that. Oh, goodness, I'm having trouble with my pen here. Let's try one more time. There we go. Okay, so we have 2, 4, 6, 8. So we have 8 families that have 0 children. So each column is going to be worth 8. So then we've got 8, 9, 10, and 11. So we've got 11 families that have 1. And then we've got the 2s go all the way up here. And if I count those 2s, it looks like I have 18. And then we've got our 3s, 8, 9, 10. We also have 11. And we have 6 4s. We have 4 5s. And we have 2 families with 6, 1 family with 7, 2 families with 8, and 1 family of 9. And what we want to always make sure is that these frequencies add up to the total number of families that were surveyed and make sure that they add up to 64. And if we do add those up, those should be equal. And we're going to come back to this chart in just a minute, but before we go actually make a graph of this information, we're going to talk about classes. And this is something that you guys are going to have to know how to do. You're going to have to know how to figure out the class width. And a lot of times students miss the class width because they don't count every point, okay? So I'm going to show you an easier way to do this class width calculation. But on the left-hand side, we have these values, which are called the lower class limits. And on the right-hand side, we have what are called the upper class limits. And so usually it's best to choose either a lower or an upper, it doesn't matter. Choose a lower or an upper class limit and then subtract the one above that limit that you chose, okay? So what I'm going to write is choose an upper or lower class limit except the first row. Okay, so we don't want to choose 0 or 4 because we have no numbers above those, okay? So we're going to choose any limit that's on the left or the right, and then we're going to subtract the limit above. Okay, so a lot of times when people look at the limit, the classes 0 to 4, a lot of students tell me that the width is 4, but they have to forget that they forget that they're counting 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that is actually 5 points. Okay, so the class width, I'm going to choose 20. Okay, and then I'm going to subtract the one that's above it. And that tells me that my class width is 5. I can do that for any number. I could choose 29. That's an upper limit. And I would subtract the one that's above it, and I still would get 5. Okay, so you want to choose any lower or upper class limit and subtract the one that's above it to find your class width. Okay, and then there are some important things here. Your class width has to be the same. You cannot have an overlap, so I couldn't go from 0 to 4 and then 4 to 8 and then 8 to, whatever. You have to have a place for every single point of your data, okay? So here we've got some examples, and then I'm going to show you on the next page what it's going to look like in your end. So you're going to have a table that looks like this where you're going to have to fill in pieces of information. But we're going to do this first one together so that I can show you how to set this up, okay? So here it tells you this is your first class that they want you to have. So we've got family incomes. We've got 15 families. So we've got our observed values here. And then we've got our frequency, okay? So our first class is going to go from 31.5 to 37.6, okay? Now, it's really hard to figure out class widths, especially when you have decimals. So the next class is going to start 1/10 greater than the one that the last class ended with, okay? So the next class will start at 37.7. Okay, we'll start at 37.7. So now we're able to figure out our class width by looking at these two numbers. So class width is 37.7 minus 31.5. So that gives me 6.2. So every class is 6.2 units. That is going to have numbers in between those lines. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that 6.2 and add it so that we get the next class as 43.8. And then we're going to start the next class at 43.9. We're going to add 6.2 to give us the ending limit as 50.0. We're going to start at 50.1. We're going to add 6.2 to end at 56.2. And then we're going to have 56.3 to start our next class. And we're going to add 6.2 to get 62.4. And then we're going to start at 62.5 and add 6.2 to get 68.6. Now with this one, I like to do tallies because I can cross them off. And so I'm going to do tallies first, and then I'm going to do frequencies. So I'm going to make another column right here, and I'm just going to call this my tally marks. So I'm going to cross off as I go. I'm going to say, okay, 46.5 falls in this third category. 31.8 is in the first one. 45.8 is in the third one. 44.7 is in the third. 40.9 is in the second. And I do that for each row. So I'm going to count that out. 65.2 is down here. 52.4. 44.6. 53.7. 48.8, that gives me 5 now there. 35.5 is in the first group. 40.3 is in the second. 39.8 is in the second. 56.3 is in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 50.7 is right there. Okay, so that way at least my tally marks make up all of those item values. And now I'm going to just write the frequencies. 2, 3, 5, 3, 1, and 1. And of course that should add up to the 15 families that we have. Okay, so now what it's going to look like on your end in the homework is that you'll have a table here, and they'll give you a class. And so what you're going to have to look at is that you know that when you have decimals, your class will increase by 1 decimal point. So if I have 99.9 as my ending first class, I'm going to add 0.1 to it, and that gives me 0, 0, 0. So I have 100 goes there. That point is needed so that I can figure out what my class width is. My class width is going to take that 100.0 and subtract the 88.0. So 8 from 10 is 2. So that is an increase of 12, or that's how wide those points are. So now I'm going to add 12 to every number. So if I just go ahead and I'm going to take 99.9 and add 12, that's going to be 0.9, 11. So 111.9, which means that this one will be 112. And so if I have 112, oops, sorry, wrong one. And then I add 12 to this, so that makes 123.9. So that makes that 124. And I add 12 to this, and that makes 135.9, which is good because the next one is 136. 147.9, I'm going to be at 148. And so 147.9 plus 12 gives me 159.9. And then I will be at 160. And if I add 12 to that, I get 0.9, 171.9. Okay, so that's how we're going to fill out those numbers. And now we're going to go through, and you could create a tally column right here since you're doing this on your scrap paper. And as I go, I'm going to cross off. So 161.4 is down here. 127.3 is in this one. 100.2 is in the second. 93.6 is in the first. 91.5 is in the first. 153.9 is down there. 123.7. 97.5 is in the first. 93.4 is in the first. 91.4 is in the first. 138.5. 120.8. 96.3. 92.6. 89. I'm going to have to move my red line. 89.4. 128.3. Ooh, undo. 128.3 is there. 106.1 is there. 94.4 is in the first. 91.9 is in the first, and 88.9 is in the first. So let's see, we've got how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we should have 20. Yep, we have 20. Okay. So 5, 10, that's 11. We've got 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, and 1. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, we got them all, okay? So that's what you're going to have to do in your My Math Lab, okay? So I'm going to stop there, and then I'll make a second part to this 12.2.